Well, folks, you're not going to believe what just happened. Apple and Amazon, the two giants that built their empires on Chinese factories, they're walking away. That's right, guys. Beijing's so-called world factory is cracking wide open, and the American companies that fed it for decades are packing their bags. But here's the kicker, guys. While China's collapse plays out overseas, right here at home, ICE stormed into Amazon-linked warehouses overnight, and they tore out the hidden migrant workforce that nobody wants you to know about. 50 workers they hauled away. 50 workers were hauled away. Communities in shock. And for the first time in years, those jobs, they're back on the table for American citizens. So think about that for a second, okay? Global corporations abandoning China's sinking ship while President Trump's America is cleaning house at home. This is wild. This is not a coincidence. This is a seismic shift. So tell me, folks, what was the last thing that you ordered from Amazon? Was it made in China? Let me know down below. And check to see what other people have commented down below in terms of what they just ordered from Amazon. And this is only the beginning, because what's happening inside China's collapsing factories, the truth about the cartels running U.S. warehouses, and the terrifying debt bubble about to explode, well, it all connects. And if you think that this is just another trade story or another immigration raid, you would be dead wrong. This is the unraveling of an entire system. So guys, in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to show you how Apple and Amazon leaving China could spark the biggest economic war of our lifetime, how ICE raids at home are exposing modern day slavery hiding in plain sight, and why today will be remembered as the night the global order flipped upside down. Hit the like button, subscribe. Let's jump in. Now, for decades, we all know China was the world's factory. From your iPhone to your LG washing machines, from steel to chemicals, from Nike sneakers to semiconductors, it all came stamped with made in China. Am I wrong? Like, is there anything not made in China anymore? Beijing bragged about being unstoppable, about controlling the global economy. But here's what they don't want you to hear, guys. What we used to hear has gone silent. That dominance is over. In fact, it started back in 1978 when Deng Xiaoping rolled out these reforms after Mao's disasters left millions of people starving. And so he ordered the doors to Western companies, and he pretty much, once he opened the doors, he called it socialism with Chinese characteristics. And at that point, he let in America's corporations hungry for some cheap labor. Now, by the time China joined the WTO in 2001, the floodgates were wide open. Amazon, Apple, Walmart, they all moved in, chasing pennies an hour wages. And who could blame them at the time, right? And for a while it worked. Chinese GDP skyrocketed from $1.4 trillion to nearly $19 trillion. They went from starving peasants to a global powerhouse, feeding their military expansion, funding Belt and Road, and challenging America itself. But here's the twist that nobody's telling you. That empire is cracking. Manufacturing made up 32% of China's GDP in 2011. Today, it's down to 25%, and it continues to fall. In fact, it is falling right now as we speak. Factory growth has stalled, wages have doubled, and the population, it's collapsing. In fact, India just passed China as the most populous country, and Beijing's workforce is graying fast. Millions of jobs cannot even be filled. Now, add Trump's tariffs on top of all of that. Billions in exports lost, foreign companies are spooked, and all of a sudden the CCP's factory of the world is no longer cheap, it's no longer secure, and it's no longer reliable. And so this is why Apple is packing up and moving production to India. Amazon is diversifying into Mexico, Vietnam, and India as well. And so these are not companies that are making these decisions all by themselves. Look at Samsung, look at Nvidia, Google. They're all following the same path as Amazon and Apple. The very corporations that made China rich are now abandoning it. And if Apple and Amazon are fleeing Beijing's sinking ship, you need to ask yourself, what does this say about China's future? I mean, you buy insurance hoping you never need it, but When you do, you hope the insurance works, right? Well, the worst time to discover gaps is in the middle of an emergency. This is why so many people call Chapter first. They act as your backup, making sure that your Medicare coverage will actually protect you when it counts. Now, one viewer told me, Chapter gave me peace of mind before I even knew I needed it. So let me ask you, do you want to wait for an emergency? Or do you want to join the thousands of people who have already called Chapter ahead of time? Most people are not waiting. They're calling the number at the bottom of your screen right there, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron on their website. The phone number is 909-563-8279. Tell them Ron says hello. So while China's factories are being abandoned left and right abroad, right here at home, a very different kind of collapse just unfolded. In Edison, New Jersey, ICE agents just stormed into an Amazon-linked warehouse at 10 o'clock in the morning. That was pretty early to be doing this, but they pulled it off anyway. So by the time that they had stormed into this Amazon-linked warehouse, it was 50 workers that had been detained. They walked out of there with 50 workers detained. This was not an isolated incident. This was not an isolated case. In fact, if you look just a week or so ago, the Alba Wine and Spirits warehouse, this is another 20 people that were taken into custody. And in Houston, Texas, raids targeted construction sites, roofing crews, even the restaurant kitchens. The pattern is unmistakable, folks. Illegal labor pipelines are running through American warehouses and work sites. All of those are now being cut off. Inside these warehouses, investigators found workers carrying cartel routing cards. These are little pieces of paper tying them directly back to the smugglers. Many of these people owed debts of $20,000 or more to cartels that smuggled them across the border. And so the warehouses became places where those debts were essentially worked off. It's a modern form of slavery behind basically hiding in plain sight, if you will. So the consequences, they fall hardest on the local communities. Every illegal worker filling one of those positions meant one less job that was available for an American citizen. Wages were pushed way down, opportunities were closed off, and innovation was stifled. Companies, they were able to operate on the cheap while neighborhoods ended up paying the price. And the Trump administration, his enforcement has put a stop to this. Now, for years, sanctuary states shielded illegal hiring, and they pretty much looked the other way while corporations filled warehouses with unauthorized workers. But now the law is being enforced again. The result is accountability for companies that ignored it and new openings for legal residents who were shut out of those jobs for years. Every illegal worker working inside of an Amazon warehouse was one fewer paycheck for an American family. It wasn't fair, and Trump's putting a stop to that. Those paychecks are finally being reclaimed. So what we're witnessing today, it's not just two separate stories. This is like one massive restructuring of the global supply chain. Now, on the one side, China's losing its grip on the world factory. On the other side, America is cleaning house and ending the era of underground labor inside of its own warehouses. Corporations are being forced to adapt. Nearshoring has become the new trend, with companies pulling operations closer and closer to home. Mexico is a clear winner. Under the USMCA agreement, it has direct access to the American market, lower wages, geographic proximity. I mean, this combination, this has drawn automakers like Ford, GM, Toyota, and BMW, right along with manufacturing giants like Procter & Gamble and Honeywell. India, they are emerging as China's biggest rival, with a younger and larger workforce and wages up to 7 times cheaper than China's. Well, India is quickly becoming the next global hub for electronics and for tech. Apple has already moved significant production there, and Amazon, they're expanding in the same direction. Vietnam, they're another rising competitor. In fact, it has just followed a very similar model to China's reforms, a communist government opening up to free market practices, but with a little bit of a twist. So, unlike China, Vietnam has allowed domestic consumption to play a central role, giving its economy a dual engine of growth. Companies like Samsung, Nvidia, and Google, they're already investing heavily in Vietnam's factories. In fact, the same shift is being echoed in Bangladesh, Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Like each one of them carving out niches where China once dominated. Together, these countries are dismantling Beijing's monopoly on cheap labor and global exports. Now, what's happening abroad mirrors what is happening at home. In both cases, the cheap labor model that was built on exploitation, it's being torn down. Corporations can no longer depend on Beijing for endless supplies of workers, and they can no longer depend on hidden migrant workforces in American warehouses either. In fact, the old system is ending and a new one is being forced into existence. Now, behind China's shrinking factories lies a financial crisis that the CCP has been desperately trying to cover up for years. Their growth has been kept alive, not by productivity, but by debt. In fact, the official government deficit, it already runs as high as 8 to maybe 9% of GDP, but that's only what they're willing to admit. Beneath the surface, there's trillions more in hidden liabilities, debts buried in local government financing vehicles, state-owned enterprises. When you add everything together, household, corporate, and government, let's just say that China's total non-financial debt has ballooned to more than 300% of their GDP. Now, this kind of leverage is clearly unsustainable. It means Beijing is printing money. It's pouring it into the economy and getting less and less growth in return. They are spending nearly 9% of GDP just to prop up 5% of growth. That is not strength, ladies and gentlemen. It's weakness that's disguised with numbers. Now, the comparison to Japan's lost decades, it's unavoidable. In the 1980s, Japan, they looked unstoppable. Japan looked unstoppable too, and it was about to overtake the United States right up until an asset bubble burst. Manufacturing stagnated and its economy froze for 30 years. 30 years, folks. That is a generation. Now, China faces the exact same trap: aging population, rising costs, competitors stealing market share, and foreign markets growing hostile. And it's not just China's problem. Here at home, companies that filled warehouses with unauthorized workers created a different kind of debt. It's a debt to their own communities. Every job handed over someone here illegally and had stolen an opportunity from the neighbor who paid the taxes, who built the schools and supported those local communities. That debt is finally being collected as ICE agents and ICE raids tear out the system. Now, China owes trillions of dollars to the banks. U.S. warehouses owe millions of dollars worth of stolen jobs to their neighbors, but in both cases, the bills are coming due. Now, the Chinese Communist Party has always ruled on one promise. You give up your freedoms, and in return, the government delivers prosperity. Well, that was pretty much the unspoken deal. But what happens when the prosperity ends? Manufacturing is slowing, exports are shrinking, the debt's starting to pile up. Now, for the first time in a generation, the people of China, they're staring at the possibility that their children will not be richer than they are. That is very dangerous for their regime. When the economy stalls, the CCP has only two options: tighten its grip with more repression, or try to distract the public with nationalism and conflict. This is why Taiwan remains such a flashpoint. Now, when leaders cannot deliver growth, they often look for wars to rally support. There's a parallel here in the United States too, though. Now, inside the American warehouse, workers were told one thing, but they actually lived another. They were told that they were chasing opportunity, but many of them, they were caught in cartel debt traps and they were forced to labor under illegal arrangements. Now, while the companies that hired them pretended not to notice, all of this was going on in the background. Families were broken apart, communities were hollowed out, and the false promise of prosperity came at the expense of, unfortunately, law-abiding citizens. Now, the difference is that under President Trump, the United States is moving in the opposite direction. Enforcement is being restored, prosperity is being reclaimed. Instead of covering up decline or hiding exploitation, there is a deliberate effort to confront it. So when economies stall, leaders either crack down harder or they get thrown out. So which path is Xi Jinping going to take? That's the question that we need to ask. Apple and Amazon abandoning China, it's not just a corporate move. It is a signal that Trump's policies reshaped the global trade map. Now, for decades, those companies, they were the lifeline of Beijing's manufacturing boom. Now they're shifting production to India, into Mexico, and into Vietnam. That alone right there, folks, that tells you China's grip is breaking. At the same time, ICE raids inside the U.S. warehouses, they're showing that the days of hidden labor forces are over. Now, for years, Americans were told that, there was nothing that could be done, that illegal hiring was just the cost of doing business. That lie collapsed overnight. In fact, the enforcement of immigration law, it's putting jobs back into the hands of American workers, and it's proving that communities, they don't have to live under the weight of exploitation. Now, looking ahead, this means more factories leaving China. It means more ICE operations uncovering the shadow workforces that companies have relied on for years. It means America regaining leverage both over its own labor market and in the balance of global supply chains. The CCP thought they owned the 21st century. They thought the future was already written in their favor. But as of September 5th, 2025, that proves otherwise. The empire is cracking and the world is watching. So what we've seen today, this is a double crisis. And at the same time, it's a double victory for America. Now, on the one side, the corporations that, once poured trillions of dollars into China's rise, they're leaving. Apple, Amazon, and the world's tech giants, they're pulling their factories out of Beijing's orbit. That single shift will reshape the global economy for decades to come. Now, on the other front, ICE raids right here at home have ripped the mask off of America's warehouses. The underground migrant workforce that stole jobs, depressed wages, and fueled cartels, it's being dismantled. These jobs are opening back up for the citizens who should have had them all along. Now, this is not the end of the story, guys. More companies will abandon China, more warehouses will be raided, more jobs will be reclaimed, and with every step, America regains the leverage that it lost. The cracks are showing, the dominoes are falling, and under Trump, America is finally winning again. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this message. And don't go anywhere because YouTube believes you're really going to enjoy the next video that's already being suggested to you right now. Click that video right here, keep watching, and let's stay ahead of the truth.